This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello everyone and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, the Red Dwarf podcast here on the Film Stories Podcast Network. I am your main host as always since the Dave era. My name is Kurt North and my co-host Mark Adams is with me. Hello Mark, how are you doing, my good friend sir? Have you finished eating so I can stop talking?
Yes, hi. I'm just having a snack in between episode recordings. But yes, I'm excited for more Red Dwarf.
Excellent. And joining us again for the second week in a row is Mr. Carl Bryan.
How are we all?
We are good. We are good. We are going to Crichtonify ourselves today in Siliconia. This was an episode, again, that first aired on the 19th of October 2017 and was aired on UK TV Play for those who wanted to use the app a little bit earlier. Yeah, this one is, and I want to think potentially, Mark, you were looking forward to. It's probably the only thing in the Dave era that you were aware of, wasn't it, from my recollection?
I absolutely was looking forward to it because I wanted to see how they got there. I wanted to see... Yeah, it's just obviously such a striking image that you can't miss because it's on the front of the DVDs, it's on all the promotional materials. It's the one thing out of all three series that I absolutely knew was happening. And we got here, and I'm glad.
And Carl, do you remember that? Because like he says there, I mean, I've got a backdrop on with Red Dwarf 12 with them all Crichtonified. So it was a telling thing. It was on billboards. It was all over the country, you know, showing that Red Dwarf was back. It's one of those things where, yes, we've had 10 and 11. People were aware of the Dave era. But this is a striking image from that era, really, around 2017 time.
I remember when the sort of print adverts came out, going a bit, oh, they all look a bit old. And then when this one came out, I was like, oh, this looks interesting. Robert Llewellyn's Revenge. This one was like, oh, they're all going to get Crichtoned. I was very much interested to see what this is going to do. And I mentioned in the last episode how I thought this series veered into other genres. I really felt that this was almost a bit horror in places with the losing of the personalities.
I can see that, absolutely. Did it live up to expectations? Did Siliconia live up to expectations about an episode? Is it one of those things where the image formulates something in your mind and you build it up and it's not quite where it was? Or where do you rate this one?
I thought it was going to be funny, and it was funny. I don't have much more for that. I think it was clearly done as a gimmick to have the striking image, but it wasn't so convoluted that it was shit. It works, but I think it's a little bit convoluted.
I really enjoyed the performances in this, especially from the Crichtonized cast. I enjoy some of the droids, some of the MILFs. James Buckley is being James Buckley, really. I think he wanted to do it, and I think I remember seeing a thing at the time where he was like, I want to do Red Dwarf. I love Red Dwarf. So he's a fan, but he's not stretching his acting muscles too hard.
It was quite funny when he came on screen because I remember like, oh, he's in it.
Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't put him in a bigger role.
Yeah.
But I guess his voice fits better for the role that he did play.
Yeah, you couldn't imagine him being the hypocritical MILF, could you?
No. Yeah, I think he was well cast. I don't think he needs to have a massive part. I think it's just fun that he's in it.
I can imagine scheduling also probably played a part in it. Like they might have shot all of his stuff in one day, or because he'll probably only agree to go put the suit on for one day, or maybe two. But then he put the suit on. He's like, no, one. I'm only doing one.
Shall we start from the top then, guys? Because we get another scene similar to last week, and like basically a cold open, really, isn't it? Where we're having the bunk scene. This one is Crichton doing the ironing and giving us that inkling that it's about him because of the, that Kat's like sort of looking for his clothes, and you've got Rimmer wanting B-deck sorting out, and you've got Lister sitting on a couch, just literally like sort of seeing where his drink cabinet is. Mine's over here just by Crichton's head. if I pull Crichton's head, my drinks would come out there. But the fact he's going to try and get someone, and I think they even allude to it, doesn't it? Which is one of my favourite moments of the episode. It's not particularly that funny, but I like the way that he delivers it when Craig Charles goes, "My mum," which is just a brilliant delivery of a line. It's like, you're everything, Craig. You're this. You're my mum, which is brilliant. But it's a nice opener. And again, I think that the thing about Doug Naylor's writing, I'll often not necessarily criticize. I don't being negative often when I'm talking about something I don't like. I'm just picking out the bits I don't like, which is not very often. But one of the things he has picked up on, I mean, the perfect one is obviously, was he Swedish? Which is just the ultimate 8-minute gag. The moose gag is just incredible. But there is this element that he will write stuff in and portray it through the episode. And I think this is another case in point where this one's setting up the theme.
I love the reveal that Lister's on the sofa and he's next to Crichton. I do love it. And it really, and in fact, he looks quite smug as well at one point. Really, you can see that Crichton's getting frustrated. I was bemused at the idea that the cat didn't have any other clothes. And he stood there shirtless and shaking. But maybe he's one of those guys who never wears the same outfit twice. Although he does in 6, but he makes a very big deal about that.
He did.
Yeah, definitely did. But there's also, the screwdriver as well, where he throws the screw. Do you want me to screw this off, sir, and take it to you? And this screwdriver just comes up and he lands and catches it. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And so I do like Crichton's reaction in that perspective as well. It's like, do you want me to do this as well? Being really sarcastic, and actually he starts to do it, which is great.
Yeah.
And then we find something we lost in Fathers and Sons. Didn't lose it. Someone's dad blew it out of an airlock. Continuity, guys. Look at this. Continuity.
True.
We found the guitar. The guitar has been found.
Bit like when they'd doubled back on themselves when they were chasing Red Dwarf in Series 6, isn't it? It doesn't make sense. How in the world, in all of infinite space, are they back where they were to find Lister's guitar?
The universe works in strange ways, but
What a weird coincidence.
I do enjoy the fact that the threat, it floats into shot like a Star Destroyer does in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's back with the guitar that only one person is going to be happy about. I do love it. I think it's great. And I think it's a good plot device that they've got the guitar is back. And it doesn't impact the episode that much. It's just that nice little cherry on top of it of Lister's happy, but everybody else is miserable.
Just had to check my calendar there because I thought, is it a reference to? But it isn't, because the Roadster was put into space in 2018, 6th of February 2018. I'm just thinking, the fact that a guitar is in space, that kind of thing, but it wasn't that. The Star Wars allusions is good. It's good that you've got, it's like a returning guest, isn't it? And I think, had this been the first episode, I think it might have had a little bit more of an impact.
It's like a returning guest. Fuck's sake. I hate that you're right.
Obviously, when we get into later in the series, another, I don't want to say inanimate, but yeah, another object returns.
Returning guest.
That's a returning guest. Can you imagine if they'd made if during the whole series Lister's guitar actually had AI and could talk?
Imagine that.
That would have been,
magnificent.
I don't think it would have been the same.
They could have got Brian May. They got Brian May to provide the voice of the guitar. Just a depressed guitar that sounds like Eeyore.
We're talking about sort of Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
please
don't play me. Yeah. I don't want to be in drop D. I really don't. And okay then. Yeah, no, it is good. But yeah, the returning guest is here. And the way we pick it up is interesting. Because for a number of different reasons. One, it's quite a funny gag to begin with. And I love the way that Lister looks up at the screen. And two, the second grappler looks like a Meccano grappler. And three, the actual ship looks great.
I agree with all of these statements. The gag is great. The teddy bear grappler and then another teddy bear grappler. That was great. It was good with just one. And then it was so much better with two.
And then Starbug's legs are all over the place when it's being taken up.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
The other thing as well, I forgot to mention actually on the when we're inside the ship before we found the ship, is that Crichton goes to see Rimmer, and Rimmer's doing some rimmering. He's doing some rimmering.
He's going around checking that the lines on the floor are getting faint, and Crichton refers to it as rimmering. I do love the fact that Rimmer isn't taking it anymore. In previous series, he'd have just shrugged it off and carried on going, or not noticed. But now he's like, please don't refer to this as rimmering. It's not even like you make it sound like a so-and-so or so-and-so. Just like, just don't. It's just like, you make me sound like I think I've got it playing in the background. You make it sound like I'm a puffed up, self-important jackass.
I mean, we do need to hear such classics as "Don't Be Ovulating Tonight."
Yes. I was like, have we ever heard that before? And then I realized he starts playing it at one point during the episode as somebody's leaving the room.
Oh, good. Oh, that's good stuff, isn't it? It really is good stuff.
I bet somewhere there's a full take. And it's probably an Easter egg on the Blu-ray somewhere.
They mentioned as well about the bazookoids. The bazookoids have come up twice in 2 episodes because they didn't take the bazookoids onto the other ship. They do here. And the way that Kat gets grabbed and thrown up against the wall is quite effective.
I forgot that they took the bazookoids on this one, because in the last one all they had was a staple gun.
Yes. And I remember being disappointed that the bazookoids weren't in the last one. So it was kind of nice that we got them at least. They didn't use them.
But then it might not be Kat's neck though. It might not be talking about my neck. Hey, I'm talking about your neck. It's like, of course he's going to be talking about his neck. I do love that. I think that is great. And then obviously then the realization of the Liberation Army, which we will now be referred to as MILFs.
MILFs. It's a good acronym. It's not quite clitoris, but it is a good acronym.
It is. And it's another one of those, it's slightly self-referential. It's played with a nod, isn't it? It's played with like, I know what you're going to be thinking of. I know what you're going to be thinking of. You're going to be talking about that episode. And, you know, it's good, it's funny, and it's a recurring gag. But there is an element of like, yeah, we're referring back to old seasons. And that's what I mean. Again, another one where it's kind of like a little bit too self-referential for me. I actually like the gag. I don't think in its isolation it's great. It's fine. It's not quite clitoris.
I like the fact it's Crichton that notices it first.
Yeah.
When they say to him, he goes, MILFs. Because it's almost like they've been so all together being droids that they might not know what MILF means. The fact that Crichton's like, MILF. We have gone over something I do want to bring up, which is Les Call, Lister's temporary guitar. The colander that he's turned into a guitar, which, bravo to the production team. That is a wonderful bit of work. And the fact it's painted like a Van Halen guitar. It could have been the year he died, which would have been an interesting little tribute. I love it, and I hope that Craig Charles took it home. And I bet you could probably get a half-decent noise out of it if you tried.
Well, you get like sort of, it's nylon strings. Then you can pretty much do anything with nylon string guitars. So it wouldn't surprise me if you could get something out of it, especially with that, like obviously using the bowl. So
my mate had one made out of a Castrol GTX cam, filled with foam, and it sounded bloody horrible. He tried, but failed.
So let's talk about the actual premise here, because Crichton doesn't perceive himself as being a slave, and he kind of like rhymes off the stuff that he does. There's a comparison with Stockholm Syndrome, which many people will know what that is. What do you actually make to that? I mean, I know it's obviously done for Red Dwarf purposes, but there is an element of like, you know, where he is the droid that does all the work and like from the top of the hour and things like that, sort of a half an hour. There's a little bit of commentary on that in relation to Crichton, isn't there really, Mark?
Yeah. Their argument is very strong if you take a step back and just look at the logistics of the relationships in Red Dwarf I think the nuance of 12 series where they clearly are friends, like Lister says later on, you're a part of the crew, you're our friend. All friendships are perfectly equal. That would be really hard to maintain, you know. You get friendships where some people really do like to look after their friends, and it's not a burden, it's not a liberty, it's just the way that dynamic of people has worked. Some people are more naturally caregivery than others, and I think it's fascinating that you can look at it from both perspectives, and both are kind of right.
When he's sitting down with the MILFs in the
therapy
group,
session,
they're all talking about like being mistreated by their masters.
I mean,
And
the actual droid that's eating the manure is particularly gruesome one, isn't it?
Yes. Crichton almost has the, oh no, but mine don't treat me like that. And it's only when they repeat him back to himself and sort of go, oh, you're listening to yourself right now. There's like, they do treat me like that. It is that, I don't want to, it's that sort of toxic relationship where it's like, oh, it's not all that bad. And then it gets pointed out and you're like, oh, it is. But like Mark says, some friendships are like that. It's like he says later on, it's like, you're a valuable part of the crew. I just do all the smeggy jobs.
Yeah. I mean, what do you make to the therapy session? I mean, it's got some of my favorite moments of Crichton's reaction where he's like, oh, no. Everyone puts their hand up and he does peer pressure and is like, oh, should I? And he's kind of like sort of just sitting there. They seem to purposely make everyone in matte black where he's in like more of the grey.
Yeah.
Crichton obviously thing as well, which kind of which sections him out. The you know, the names of the other ones, like Chairpot Excalibur, for example, some of the names are quite florid, to say the least, I think. And it does feel a little bit pointed, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
We talked about it in the last episode where there's almost that stereotypical therapy speech in there. And I think this follows it up as well in there and somewhat. But the people who were saying it genuinely believe that they are better. And it's only the people above them or the people that have sort of indoctrinated them that are the ones that are actually evil or, you know, misleading, for lack of a better term.
Bit cultish, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when you meet the head of the MILFs, he's got dark glasses and a beret on, and that normally means, from my big book of movie cliches, that normally means sort of resistance leader or, you know, that kind of thing. And it's interesting that that's their outfit. It's Che Guevara. They all want to believe they're like Che Guevara because they, you know, they're liberating other droids, but they're really just bending everybody to their way of thinking.
Oh, I'd say that cult mentality, isn't it? Like they'll get people at their lowest steps. So if you think about like, you know, DB9, HK4, who's a robot slave survivor. You know, you've got like Incense, you know, as a name, and then, you know, they talk about like the female one called Eagle, where she's like saying about being constantly mocked for the head shape. Now, there's a bit of like referential thing because of Crichton and that, but there is this like deep, dark underbelly in that. It's like taking that therapy session and going, okay, but we'll listen to you. We'll make you feel happy. We'll get you in a position where we can manipulate you into this world. And then you've only got to look at what happens later in where we do meet the other grunts that are actually in the decks, in the diesel decks, very Blade Runner-esque, to be fair, because it is kind of like that Blade Runner style of like the utopia, dystopian stuff and all that's in between. You know, the hypocrisy of them saying, oh no, we're freedom fighters, but we're not going to do the menial works. I mean, that's for 3000s. So it's very hypocritical in that way, which I think it's really telling. And I do think I didn't think of it till right now, but I do think there's a little bit of that Blade Runner-esque, that dystopian feel that Doug Naylor likes anyway.
Got to fit the Blade Runner references in.
I really liked it. I thought it was a nasty little drop. The shocking hypocrisy of it all. And it felt like the delivery where it almost comes out of nowhere. You're like, oh, you fuckers. It was Yeah, it was really well done. I wasn't expecting that. That was really clever.
The recalibrations.
We all knew the gag with the cat was coming, but it was still funny. We all knew it.
And they do it twice. When
and it's still funny twice.
And again, in this episode, like Mark picked out in the last, there were great slumping going on. Especially Craig Charles doing it with his... It goes back a bit to... not this one, where he just sort of slumps and like one eye goes crossed. Craig Charles does really good facial expressions, and especially when he gets into the Crichton suit, because I think he realizes, I think they all realize, but I think Danny John Jules and Chris Barry, you can see them more clearly in the makeup, and you can't with Craig Charles. I don't think you can. Yeah. So Craig Charles you'll see that he does a lot of sort of like the Les Dawson mugging, sort of almost gurning. There's the smeg up where Robert Lloyd goes, "I just cacked me pants," and that kind of face that he pulls. Craig Charles is doing that, and I think it's because he's like, I need to push further to get through this makeup.
I think Chris Barry and Danny John Jules look great in the mech masks and makeup, whereas I didn't clock that the mop wielding staff fighting wasn't Crichton when we watched the credits. When it happened in this episode, I was like, holy fucking shit, it wasn't Crichton. With hindsight, I'm pretty sure Kurt was having a jolly old time where I was going, well, what's Crichton doing fighting with the mop?
There's only so much I could like sort of hold back. I was like, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good when he realizes, that's great.
A thing that's dawned on me, because I do have it on in the background while we're recording, is I've got the feeling that the reason the majority of them are wearing sunglasses is because of makeup.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll just be rubber mask that's on top of them for on, won't it? That's what it'll be.
That makes sense to me, because something that, apart from the one in the therapy session, you've got the main sort of three who were talking that aren't wearing sunglasses, but even like the head MILFs, and something doesn't look quite right. It looks like they haven't got necks in a couple of them, and I think that is because the masks are less their makeup department. That must have been a day and a half just getting everybody ready. But if they did build on just like pull-on masks,
it wasn't cool.
No,
it wasn't so cool. Another thing as well, like Isaac Asimov's first law of robotics is mentioned, isn't it? Where they talk about like sort of breaking the laws and that type of thing, which is obviously, a very staple. You'll see that obviously in Asimov's work, but you'll also get it in like sort of RoboCop and things like that, where it's like all these rules and stuff like that. And I even feel that that's a little bit of you can say this and you can abide by those rules, but there's ways around rules. And I think that again goes back to doubling down on what they're doing as like a proper hypocritical thing, that they're making a narrative fit what they want to happen rather than actually abiding by the rule itself. They're finding the loopholes within it. And going back to what we were saying in last episode with Keyword, we were saying like Doug Naylor seems to focus on things that he's been watching or doing or things that happen in his life or whatever it may well be. That last week was all about like CEOs of companies and politicians and things like that. And this is a very kind of politic heavy kind of idea or thing that, don't actually utilize the tools that you've got to form your own narrative. And I think that really works quite well in Asimov's first law, because like, you're breaking those laws though, because you're going to harm us. But it's like, well, no, because we're giving you extended life, so you can't break the law and things like that, which is fascinating.
Yeah, it's a nasty little loophole, and it works.
It's very clever. It's an excellent bit of writing, and also they could say like as well, like, well, these aren't your bodies, but these
break your finger.
Breaks his own finger, doesn't he? And he yells in pain. It's almost like that phantom limb thing, isn't it? And Crichton's cut his own hand off before, and
that's true.
He's taken his own head off, and it's not bothered him. I mean, in the last episode, he got his head put on a mop. and
It was like
he never said like this hurts or anything like that.
he's almost annoyed.
Yeah, exactly.
And what about the punishment? Because the punishment is things that have happened to Crichton. So it's kind of like meta-wise, Robert Llewellyn's been put through being Crichton for so many years and had so many times he had to go into makeup. So there's a bit of a meta aspect to it.
Yeah.
But there's also the fact of like Kat has to get all the ironing done, that, you know, the sandwiches have to be made because List is always asking him for food. There is a double meaning in that relationship as well. And the fact they're in the prison cells doing it, and we kind of started to allude to before, when they all are Crichtonified, they start to meld into that. And again, looking on the reflection of what we've been talking about with like the darker side of it, that they're going into that world. They're kind of like being drawn into that world. And I'm quite enjoying this, you know, when he's making sandwiches and stuff, which I think is quite effective, actually.
Everybody gets to do their Crichton impression.
I think there's an aspect of giving them all a chance to do the Crichton impression, but I think it really, really works. And the kind of subtlety of the changes, it happens in degrees. They all get to do their Robert Llewellyn / Crichton impression. And I think that's probably a bit of a tonic, considering how much it would have been unpleasant to be dressed like Crichton. And
it starts with Lister sort of doing the resolder my nipples and call me Gerald or whatever it was. And I've noticed something is this in the scene where he's doing all the sugar puff sandwiches, he looks like David Ross.
there definitely was one in the background that explicitly looked like David Ross. I spotted that and it freaked me out.
There's the thing that I noticed as well. Danny John Jules in his Crichton form is black.
Yes.
Craig Charles isn't. Which I think is another thing that kind of almost takes it away a little bit, in that it takes me back. Remember when Lenny Henry had that movie where he was like a master of disguise, but he was like putting on white face.
Makeup? Yes, I do. What was it called?
Double Identity, Secret Identity, something like that.
That was it.
Yeah. It reminded me of that because it just did. It just looked very, very similar in that, in something that was quite odd. And maybe that's why Craig Charles doesn't look as much like Craig Charles, as he's got the mauve head that all the other Crichtons have.
It's always been a fascination of mine about that, just about why that's an interesting choice. Yeah. I kind of also thought, I don't know enough about filmmaking, whether or not that we're not getting the kind of right colour grade, that it might be darker in real life, and the lighting's not maybe made it a little bit lighter than what we'd expect it to be. So I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really read up anything that says anything to the difference.
Yeah, because I mean, even if they did it the other way and made the mask the same hue as Danny John Jules, that would also look weird, because Craig Charles is lighter skinned than Danny John Jules. They must have asked him first and like, look, we're not sure how this is going to look. The thing is as well, Cat's still got the teeth, even though he's Crichtonified. Rimmer's still got the H, even though he's Crichtonified.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which made me laugh.
Why didn't
I just
you
kind
have
of
the
wish
dreads?
they'd put the dreads coming out the back of...
You could have had stick-on dreads on the back, couldn't they?
Yeah.
Because that would have been funny.
But I think this scene where they start changing up their personalities are going, is Siliconia Silicon Heaven? Because it's never really been mentioned before. They all treat it like it's Silicon Heaven.
Well, they're kind of like saying because of the upgrade thing, isn't it? It's like their update station. So, yeah, I'm not sure.
Rimmer starts to believe in it. Cat starts to believe in it. Lister's kind of hanging on. And then when we meet James Buckley, Rusty, he's like, oh, we don't get to go, but none of us believe in that stuff anyway. It just feels like maybe at some point they went, right, let's stop calling it Silicon Heaven.
Good point. Maybe the episode should have just been called Silicon Heaven.
It was going to be called Criticus. That's what it was going
stand
to
up at the end. I'm Criticus. No, I'm Criticus. That could be one for the next series.
Yeah, because obviously the end result is the update station that they find. So they find the very thing that they're looking for, but it actually equals the playing field. Yeah. So it is an interesting dynamic. I mean, if you think about like sort of the stuff that's happened in recent history with like Apple saying they deliberately slowed older machines down because They want people to buy the next iteration. And Doug being the way that Doug is, kind of like focusing on that. You know, it's like, again, it's that corporate greed. It's that capitalist idea. We're going to manipulate this to create something so you can keep going into it. I mean, that feels like it's where it's pointed at, but it's interesting that they all get the upgrade and then they all kind of live together. So it's a kind of a mixed signal. I don't know.
As soon as it happens, everybody's fine. Everybody gets on with each other because they're all the same, which is a weird way of handling it.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean. But
I can only imagine the Mech 2000s, and though they were too old, they can have the right operating software.
Well, but they say they all get upgraded, don't they?
Yeah, they're the 3000s, 4000s. You don't see any 2000s.
No, the 2000s are probably the snack machines.
I think what's interesting about it is this really is quite dark in a lot of ways, this episode. Obviously, it's funny because the rest of the Red Dwarf crew are behaving and look like Crichton, but the background of that was really quite dark, with like a very hypocritical, brutal society in a lot of ways. This is a comedy, and I think it's kind of nice that it all works out in the end. Is it as sophisticated as an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation might have handled it? Probably not. I do like that it ends with like a happy ending and everything works out for the droids and there's no animosity between the crew and the droids in the end. They're not running away like they were from the Kinetawawe, for example. So I think it's perhaps a little contrived, but in a strange way, I really like it.
Would you call it so cool?
It's so cool.
I think for me, despite this being a Crichton-heavy episode and a very droid-heavy episode, Chris Barry steals it. The monologue he does, where they get out and he presses the alarm and dobs them in because he doesn't want to go back to being Rimmer, and where he says, I don't have any of like my neuroses or anything like that anymore. I don't feel the urge to be an officer. I don't have this resentment in my gut anymore. I just want to be a mechanoid and serve. And the way he delivers it is like, oh God, you know, it's like,
it's pretty poignant.
You almost feel like he knows he won't get it, but he's going for an award here. He's doing his speech. The way he delivers it, it's so sad, but he's so happy.
And it makes sense.
Yeah.
Whether it's happenstance or not, it's just that, one, you've got someone as talented as Chris Barry who can do the voices. If you're going to have anyone go first, it's going to be Chris Barry, isn't it? Because it's just the fact that you're going to have him going, yes, sir, and doing all the impression and stuff. But on top of that, you've got the Rimmer character, so it just naturally forms in that way, which is good.
It's the kick and line, because as he starts delivering it, he becomes more and more like the Crichton voice. So it could be phenomenally silly. But when Lister says to him, we need to get your neuroses back, this is what makes you you, and he goes, I don't want to be me. And like, oh, bloody hell. You know, that's dark. To the point where he will basically kill the Captain Lister to stay as he is. And you get the feeling that when he does the whole speech about, like, I wanted to be a fish, and this, that, and the other, is like, that's still Rimmer, but he's made up his mind.
Yeah,
you know, it's not brainwashing. He actually,
it's an order, isn't it? It's also the order of the way that mechs work as well. So there's almost like a conflict in between the two. His neuroses, which is what always holds him back, and now he's freed of those neuroses. He has that desire to do what I know it's like in service of, and I know there's obviously it's the menial stuff in relation to the actual droid itself, but within that, there's a hierarchical structure that he can climb and probably will be able to climb. He actually will be good at following the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in that, if he's in that mold, he's, irrespective of whether or not he likes it or not, his entire nature is to follow the rules. So him being taken away his neurosis makes absolute sense. He'd be like a Crichton or a mech, maybe not a Crichton, but a mech.
They do escape from this, and this is where they first meet the Mark IIs.
I think it's actually the Mark IIs in general that are supposed to look a little bit more like David Ross than the Mark IIIs. I think it's a little subtle difference and a nod. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but they did look slightly less advanced in a subtle way.
Also, the fact that the only one you really see in focus is Rusty, is James Buckley, and the other three behind him in soft focus, which I think is also covering up the fact that the masks aren't the headlining masks, if you know what I mean.
Their hood's not makeup. It's clear that their hood's not makeup.
Yeah, because you can see people's mouths move and the lips don't move, but you can see the teeth going underneath. At the end of this big speech, you still get the gag of Rimmer going, "Be like me, become a MILF." And the heroic look off into the distance.
Yeah. He does that so well. What about the setting for the underbelly of the ship? What did you think to the setting?
If the Tate Modern wasn't there, I'd think it'd gone back to Series 4, to Series 4 sets.
I think I remember Collins suggesting it was the Games Master arena.
He did suggest that, yeah.
I'm sure that was
Was
in
he
the
right?
Tate Modern, though.
Was that a Tate Modern?
I'm sure that was in the Tate Modern as well. But, yeah, I mean, if it is still there after all these... I mean, I know they brought Games Master back. It would be interesting to see if it was that Games Master arena. And if that Games Master arena is there, why there isn't a Games Master live experience like there is a Crystal Maze live experience.
Before he said that, I assumed it looked very similar to the set in Series 8 in the tank. That's why I naturally assumed. It felt like it was the same kind of like place that they've maybe used before, but
it's very smoky, and with that, it makes me think. You know how we talked about in 10, how a lot of the corridors were just like blocks that would be put together and dismantled and put together in different shapes. I almost feel like this is another set that they've just gone, bit of iron grill over here, a lot of smoke. No one will know the difference.
What did you make of the actual fight? I know, Mark, you mentioned about the assuming it was Crichton when you first saw it in the credits, but the actual kind of combat element to the episode, what did you make to it?
It was very silly, very much satirized. A lot of very serious science fiction. Like, it was taking the piss out of Batleth fighting in a lot of ways, wasn't it? And that kind of thing that you see in...
All that, yeah, all that gladiatorial stuff.
I liked it. I thought it was shot quite well.
Oh, I liked it.
Yeah, we have got here two men in their 60s. So I think I love the idea that they get dirtied up and they have to clean each other, and that's how it works. It's very droid.
Yeah. Be prepared to be cleaned.
And now Kat's gone as well, so Kat's gone completely to the other side. And just that bit, it's very horror, like where Lister just goes, boom, and then comes back and he's gone. He's not Lister anymore. The set for this did remind me a bit of Street Countdown.
Okay.
Don't know what Street Countdown is.
From the IT crowd.
Yeah, don't mention it.
But yeah, it's...
I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. And when Mark went, I don't know what that is, I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah. But there is a very sort of like, tire bins on fire.
I still can't get over Gemma Chan's in that.
Is she?
Gemma Chan's in it, yeah.
Oh, God. Mind you, it's Benedict Wong as well.
Benedict Wong and Gemma Chan are both in that episode. And it's the guy who plays, I can't remember what he's called. It's like Kevin or something, where he pretended to be an England footballer and tried to get onto the thing as a
I know. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was, but yeah, I was literally, that episode was on TV the other night and I was like, is that Gemma? And I went straight to move her off and went, is that Gemma Chan? Yeah. So I did like literally looking at it, it's Gemma Chan. She was hostess thing.
Is she in Star Trek now?
No, she was in, well, I knew her from the robot thing in Channel 4. I can't remember what it's called. Humans.
Yeah.
Humans. She was in Humans.
That was so good.
Yeah. And then she was in, but yeah, she was in one of the Marvels as well, the Eternals.
Yes, she
said I saw a video of her in like a talk show where she's like, some people like, I think it was The Last Leg, where people go and touch her, try to touch her under the chin to turn her off.
Oh,
and my natural reaction would be, I wouldn't be trying to turn her off. I definitely would not be trying to turn her off. I can guarantee that.
And Benedict Wong's turned into one of the best characters in the entire MCU.
Yeah, bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the writer and director we shall not talk about.
Absolutely not.
Let's get back to talking about MILFs. Yeah, I mean, there's not much, Carl, unless you're I mean, I know you generally watch it as we talk, but other than that gladiatorial scene's well cut, it's well edited, I thought. Yeah. The speed of the cuts and stuff worked to its favour. And then, as I say, you kind of get I think the Star Trek illusion is quite right, really. The fact that, yeah, they do, by the end of it all, are talking off the same hymn sheet. So there's an element of like, but yeah, it's a decent episode. It's it's a one I kind of forget bits of, and every time I come back to it, it's like, oh, I remember this bit now. So
yeah, I got confused the first time we watched it that Crichton turns down the upgrade, but I think it's more to stop the others getting upgraded.
Yeah,
because he knows that he'll have completely lost them if they get upgraded as well.
So, Mark, any final thoughts then on Siliconia?
I think the CGI in this episode, once again, is bang on. I think they did the very best they could with the hooded masks for so many extras that were mechs. And I think this is probably the episode out of the lot of this series that shows you how much care and thoughtfulness continues to go into Red Dwarf when it comes to being able to make lemonade from lemons. And it's a fantastic episode in a lot of ways. There's some weird shit going on, but it didn't disappoint, considering it was the biggest thing that I knew about the whole Dave trilogy, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah.
I really, really like this episode. I think it's like Mark says, there's so much in it. What starts off with, Lister's got his guitar back, turns into, I don't want to be me anymore. I want to be a mechanoid.
Yeah.
And, greeting, and then Siliconia. It was just like, that took a turn. There's a lot in it. It shows that after 12 series, Doug Naylor can fit a mini film almost into 29 minutes.
I would definitely come at it more from the perspective of the Stockholm syndrome and the cult side of things, because I like that kind of storytelling. I like dystopic stuff anyway. Having a dystopic comedy seems random and a bit juxtaposition-y, to say the least, but it works. And you're right with like the speeches of what Rimed does is good. And there's some funny bits in it, and like my mum and all that kind of thing, which I keep alluding to. And, when he's quite enjoying it, I think Lister's, when he's enjoying his sandwiches and stuff like that, works really well. The gladiatorial thing is the thing I hate about Star Trek. So that element wasn't too good for me.
Even the one with the rock?
The one with the rock in Voyager, oh my God. I completely forgot about that one. Thanks for reminding me about that.
Was so long ago.
No, that's when the rock had hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's like, so the dystopic stuff is the stuff that I would naturally lean towards, and I think that element works really well for me. It gives me food for thought every time I watch it. So, which is why I kind of cottoned onto that a little bit, really. So that's kind of where I come from it.
I think you're right. I think there's an aspect of Red Dwarf doing what it's always done quite well, is just low-key putting in a sci-fi concept that could have made an entire film, could have inspired 2 or 3 episodes of a more serious science fiction teleseries. But it just has a really cool little concept, doesn't really explore it as much as it could, but I don't think I want it to.
No.
And then put some lols in there, and that level of subtlety is something that we've seen from very early Red Dwarf right until right at the end of it here.
It could have easily been in series 7 with the tone of that series. And this series, with some of these, it's probably the first series in the Dave era where I kind of wish that they had the extended episodes like they did in some of those earlier series. It's because obviously now you're writing with commercial breaks in mind as well. From this series and presumably 11, we all know 11's a bit of a weird blackout for me at the moment. I couldn't tell you where the ad breaks were.
No, I couldn't actually.
No.
Something I was watching today where it was, you could distinctly know where the advert breaks were, and I was like, oh, it was, I can't remember who it was. No, it was definitely
Was
something.
it 24?
No, it wasn't 24. 24, you can definitely distinctly. They actually include the adverts in the clock.
Yeah. I mean, you get your ones like your Diagnosis Murders and your, Murder, She Wrote, where it's just like, oh my God, it's Mark. Long shot of the face that fades out into the ad break. And if they'd have taken a wrong step here, they could have had that, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, they're going to crichtonify us. Ad break. It could have very easily been. Exactly. Can you imagine if they did a real-time Red Dwarf episode?
Yeah,
That'd be great.
that would be great, wouldn't it? We should maybe do a live Red Dwarf episode.
What, act one out?
Maybe.
That could be a Christmas special.
Yeah. Make our papier-mâché Crichton masks.
We're not doing that. We're
Sticky
doing
wrap
Labyrinth
plastic.
this year.
Yeah.
Dance,
Can't wait to do Labyrinth.
jump,
Can't
magic
believe
jump.
Matt's not seen it.
Is he not?
Nope.
Nope.
He has not.
Matt's never seen Labyrinth. Shocking, innit?
Coming this Christmas on Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast. Join Kurt, Mark, Carl, and Colin as they take Matt on a journey to the mysterious world of the Labyrinth, where nothing is as it seems.
It's on ITV for free at the moment. ITVX.
He's going to be singing the songs until like March.
When I first got my car and drove through the centre of town on a Friday, Saturday night playing Dance Magic Dance, like with the windows down and music right up, going, screw you with your dance music, I'm going to put Dance Magic Dance on.
It's a perfect pop song.
The advert break thing is interesting, especially on network television, because I was speaking, this is when I name drop, Darren Morgan, who's my favourite X-Files writer, and I still cannot understand to this day that the co-producer, Chris Carter's co-producer, Frank Spotnitz, introduced me to Darren Morgan by saying, do you know Kurt from the X-Cast? And I'm like, hang on a second. The co-producer of the X-Files is introducing me to my favourite writer. And I was asking, have you met Kurt yet? I was like, that was mind-blowing. He said in the panel when he was doing the talks and stuff about, like, he was really obsessed with making sure that whenever he finished an ad break, they wouldn't come back into the same scene. Because when you watch a lot of TV shows back in that era, in the late 90s, I'm assuming Buffy probably did it, where you'd end one scene, but then you'd come back to the same scene. So it'd fade out and fade back in again. And it's like, oh, it's a bit jarring, where he was like obsessed with doing the 4 or 5 act break, where you have an advert break, I'm going to play to that break because I'm going to make sure that there's a clean break and you move into something new.
I watched Doctor Who in America on BBC America, and it was frustrating as hell.
Whereas like Red Dwarf 10, the one that's always interesting for me, Red Dwarf 10, where you can tell it's written for the ad breaks, is when he gets the eyeballs of Doom in the episode where he crashes, Rimmer crashes, and he pulls those faces and he gets the eyeballs of Doom. And the advert break is there because it kind of freezes on his face when he stops. But that's a perfect place for an ad break because it's like he stopped and it's a cliffhanger. And that was the other thing he said as well, Darren. He was like, I always try and make little mini cliffhangers, not enough like, not something relevant, not like 24, where you'd end everything with like, oh my God, someone's been shot, what's going on? Or hear gunshots, or, someone's fallen off a cliff. Every single advert break, it was just something small, you know what I mean? Just really small, but it'd always be a cliffhanger.
Mushroom cloud every 15 minutes.
Yeah. That was a nice little diversion. So shall we wrap this up for today then? Mr. Carl, Mister Carl.
I am Mr. Carl on pretty much everything. Mostly you can find me on Instagram and Threads. But yeah, that's where the main thing will be. And if anyone out there can tell me what I was doing during the period of time we recorded Series 11, I'd be very grateful because it's a complete blank.
The irony is, and I'm not joking about it, I can't remember you being on it either. And I've edited them. I've spent
I'm
probably
pretty
about
sure-
3 hours editing your voice.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm on the first 2 episodes.
You are.
Well, I can't remember any of it.
Maybe that's it. It's because we're recording this too quickly, Mark.
It's not the natural way of things to have 2 series with like no break, really. Yeah, that's not the natural way of things.
I can't wait till we get all the way around and then we have to start from series 1 again, but we just move episodes along by 1.
And I am joking with this because I know Mark will instantly jump down my throat by this. I said, I think he's slave driving me, Carl. That's what he's doing. He's making me record and edit all these episodes together. Yeah, that's what he's doing.
I have offered so many times to help with the editing. And every time you're like, no, I can do it.
They don't call him maniacal Mark Adams for nothing.
They don't call me maniacal Mark Adams. They
But
call
they
me a lot of rude words, but not that.
Right, guys, you can find me on Linktree, linktr.ee/rmuldrake, RMULDRAKE. I'm currently doing my Lost Rewatch retrospective podcast called The Magic Box. That is the best place to find me. I'm on the Xcast. I'm on Make It So, which we're currently doing probably Lower Decks when this comes out, as that is doing its final season. So there's lots of me you can get hold of. I have called myself a whore, so, you know.
You are a whore.
Take a piece of me if you like. It's fine. But until next week, where we get a new guest. So, Carl, thank you. This is it. This is you done now.
Oh, it is?
Until Promised Land.
Oh my.
So-
Bloody hell. What a ride.
What a ride it's been. 12 series.
Yeah.
12 series, and the posse have stayed together.
Yeah.
We haven't broke apart.
I'll be honest. I always thought we would get to this point with the 5 hosts that we have because we're also fucking stubborn. There are other podcast hosts that kind of like come in and out, and various podcasts, even on our network, have had multiple hosts. But the 5 of us are really fucking stubborn. And we were always going to get to this point with the 5 of us completing the fucking thing.
I must admit, when we started, I must have gone like, yeah, but 12 is like 10 years away. And it's not, it's 4. But I didn't think we'd get here. Not for a while. Yeah, I knew we'd get here eventually, but I didn't think we'd get here as quickly as we did. Probably because when we started doing specials, which we've got to stop calling them specials, the other episodes now.
They're special to me, Carl.
No,
I know.
The Red Dwarf episodes are the specials.
Yeah.
They're the specials.
Someone has said that to me. out in one of my friends who does listens like, yeah, you do more non-Red Dwarf than you do Red Dwarf. It's like, well, after series 12, get ready because that's going to be happening a lot more until we run out of stuff.
Well, you know, we might have to pull this back, Mark. We might have to like do more episodes on Red Dwarf itself.
We have had an idea.
It might have been alluded to maybe last season.
Oh, no, we announced it on Twitter ages ago. There's no fucking mystery here. We're doing a minute podcast for the Promised Land. But still, that will mean that we'll do more Red Dwarf episodes than there are specials after we've done the Promised Land. And I'll be really fucking smug about that.
And that is the only reason why I asked for it to be done that way in the first place. It was like, I need to get the episode count back up. Because we're on episode 69 today. The actual episode count is something like 152.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Some of them are relevant, like this magazine. Some of them are tenuous, but some of them are relevant.
Like the Trifibian monster, for example.
We need to finish the fucking magazine episodes, actually. Only got 4 left.
Who have we got next week, Mark? Do you know?
Colin is coming in for what widely regarded as the worst and the best episode of the entire season run. So,
and he's
he just
looking
kind of
forward to it.
Yeah, he just kind of ended up there after Matt and Carl cherry picked because they knew what was fucking coming.
Well, I know what's fucking coming in that episode. It means chaos and a nightmare to edit. So I might offer the editing fee for that one for Mark. We'll see how we go. We'll see what
I don't mind that.
What absolutely chaos ensues over the next couple of weeks. But until then, time for me to say goodbye by going.
Right, who's for a sugar puff sandwich?
So cool.
So cool.
Cool. Right, stop. Cool. So cool.
Shipwrecked and Comatose is a podcast brought to you by the Film Stories Podcast Network.
The show was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North.
The logo was designed by Carl Bryan, and the theme tune was composed and performed by me, Colin Jackson Brown.
I suppose I'm here as well. Matt Latham.